All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you aboard for another excursion. Another excursion in broadcast land. We've been doing this for a very, very long time. Very long time. I have enjoyed every night that I've been able to sit in front of all the types of microphones I've spoken into since 2006. And let me just tell you, there's been plenty of microphones. Many of them sucked. And here we are tonight. We're sounding good. We're decently air-conditioned compared to what's going on outside. It is June 27th, 2024. And we have some really cool stuff to talk about with a great guest. This is Quite Frankly's pre-show. And I welcome aboard Jay Gulinello has joined us again tonight. It's going to be great because we have some stuff to do that he specializes in. And then we're going to go and talk a little bit about, we're going to watch the debate together. How you doing, Jay?
I'm good. Who's the special guest?
You're the special guest, no?
Oh, okay.
Jay Gulinello is the special guest.
Yeah, I'm ready to go, Frank.
Yeah, man, me too.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it is. You know, the best thing about this is about the whole debate thing is that you don't need to be a policy wonk. You don't need. There might have been a time about 4 or 5 years ago that I'd be able to sit there and actually, and be able to give an opposing statistic to everything that's going to be tried tonight. We're so far beyond it. There's there's just bigger operational things that are being done tonight. I think all anybody should be doing is watching body language and inflection of the voice, the behavior of the moderators, and trying to get a gauge real quick up front what narrative is going to be built upon tonight's production. Is it that the continued controlled demolition of Joe Biden's candidacy, is that going to continue? Or does it look like they're actually going to roll the dice and hope that the drugs can get him through to December? I don't know. It's really just we're watching this for it's almost like murder mystery reasons.
It's a sick curiosity, like when you pass a car accident, you can't help but look.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we'll talk a lot about this, but the narratives are more interesting to me than policy, because I think this is one of those rare moments in history where you have two, correct me if I'm wrong, I think maybe Garfield was the last president where you had, or that election where you had two candidates who had previously been president. So you now have a direct comparison. You can juxtapose the last 4 years with the 4 years prior to that. And so it's really just up to what kind of life you want to live. But I agree with you. I think the rest of it is endlessly fascinating. And what role will CNN play? Because when you think about it, this is bizarre that we have to keep Joe Biden in like this hermetically sealed environment. We have to control his environment in every manner possible, or else he, explodes, goes off the rails. Nobody really knows. But it's so interesting. No audience. We're shutting off mics. We're all these rules. And we've just gotten so used to this bubble-wrapped presidency that it just seems to be okay for everybody else. But I don't know if you remember back in the day when George W. Bush looked at his watch, or maybe it was H.W. Bush. I can't remember which Bush. He looked at his watch during a debate, and that was like the end of the world, right? And now you got this guy who's going to be up on stage who can barely finish a sentence. So it's just interesting what we allow to become normal, isn't it?
Well, you brought up James Garfield, and I'm saying to myself, I think
I'm right on that. But.
I'm saying to myself, whoa, we're at the end of the Gilded Age there. That's 1880. And I'm thinking, okay, well, 125 years later, how better off are we?
How better off are you now than you were 120 years ago?
To say that there's precedent for what we're about to see tonight is just, no, there is none. It doesn't matter what the hell they were.
No.
So yeah, that's we'll get around to that, because in the second half of the show, there's plenty that is going to set the table for what we'll do. What we'll do, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to do the show as usual. From it's already started, and we'll do this until maybe about 10 to 9, around 8:50 or so. We're going to cut it off, and then we're going to take a break over here, grab some water, and then fire up a new stream. The stream will be live on the Quite Frankly website. It's going to be on pilled.net, on quitefrankly.tv, on Rumble, on D Live and on Twitter. Maybe Twitch. I don't think it takes very much to fire Twitch up too, but YouTube is an absolute no-go. If you are a loyal Google/YouTube user, then you have to know the word is out there that YouTube is just eliminating anybody who goes and makes a watch party out of this.
But that's another thing that's just so shocking about this, isn't it? I mean, this is the most popular president in the United States, Frank. Don't you know he got the most votes in presidential history? Why would you not want to, celebrate that on the largest streaming platform like YouTube? It's just amazing to me that's a thing.
I wonder what it actually is.
Protection.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what Razor Fist said about an hour ago. He said there's no audience, a 2-minute broadcast delay. I've heard people contest that usually it's like a 7-second broadcast delay, but there was somebody lobbying for 2 minutes. I don't know if that actually happened or whatever. Mics can be cut off at a whim, and certain topics are banned outright. CNN aren't filming a debate; they're shooting a film.
Certain topics are banned. Again, what else have we gotten used to in this current climate? That is. At any other time, those words would be verboten. I mean, the public wouldn't stand for it, but now we've just gotten so used to the soft armor of censorship that's not so soft anymore.
No. It's rock hard.
Yeah.
I would say it's rock hard.
I wish we had a transition for that.
Wait, but did you see? You've got to see this though. I was just showing that my buddies Adel and Zach showed this to me. I already had a show written, and now we're just doing something else completely.
That's usually what happens with us.
You have to see this.
If we go behind the podium,
this is CNN. They showed this to me on the 4 o'clock show that we did. CNN did a whole in-depth breakdown of the mute system that they have put into place because they really want to make sure that nobody interrupts the other, which of course is just there to make sure that there is a very quiet, well-organized and controlled headspace for Joe Biden and his pharmacist to get all of his words out without Donald Trump saying anything hilarious. Because, of course, like I said earlier on in the day, Donald Trump won 2016 just from his zingers alone.
Absolutely. And the best thing you can do if you want to throw Joe Biden off track is throw like a verbal banana peel, right? Give him something that he's not ready for, and he's done because he has to stick to his script because, I mean, he reads the word pause off the teleprompter, right?
I know.
I mean, he's the Ron Burgundy president. So
here, take a look at this. This is the CNN is giving you I called it a Mr. Rogers field trip. They want to show you what the brilliant minds at CNN devised to make sure that they had a mute button.
if we go behind the podiums, you can see 2 green lights. When they're on, they signal to the candidate his microphone is on. When the green lights are off, they signal to the candidate his microphone is off. Now I want to give you a sense of what it will look like for viewers at home if a candidate whose microphone is off interrupts a candidate whose microphone is on. So I'm standing at one podium, and I'll ask Phil to come in and take the other podium. And so let's say I'm answering a question. My light is green, and I'm speaking. Phil's microphone is off, and his green lights are not illuminated. He's going to interrupt me as I'm speaking, and this is what it will sound like. My volume remains constant, while Phil's interruption can be difficult to understand.
Dude,
They talk to you like you're a 5-year-old.
It's just like, okay, you're going to mute somebody.
Right. Fine.
But you're giving I wonder, I said this before, they should have gotten Planet Fitness to sponsor this with their lunk alarm.
That's a good idea.
Some of that drops. Yeah. CNN's stupid for not getting Planet Fitness all over this.
Yeah, and they would have been right on board, too.
Oh, my God. So it's a...
I mean, again, man, it's just about the controlled environment because nothing, can stray from the script. And Donald Trump is, if nothing else, he's the monkey wrench, right? We've all known that. So it doesn't even feel like a debate because in a real debate, I don't know about you, but part of what I'm looking for is to see command of a situation. And sometimes command of the situation does require a little bit of over talking. And you're, presumably auditioning for the leader of the free world. So your body language, as you said, but also your command of a situation and a conversation is important.
Yep.
So they're actually taking away some of the relevant data that someone would need to judge whether someone is capable or not of handling the position.
Especially since we live in a time right now where we are the closest to nuclear war that we ever have been.
Right.
And
can you shut off Vladimir Putin's microphone, please?
Yeah.
Please shut his microphone off.
Can you to be in a high intensity situation, and you need to be able to regain control, get something across in chaotic situations. It's true.
Without the actors at CNN throwing blocks for you. It's pathetic because we know exactly which direction this microphone muting is going to go.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So
it's the unspoken. Well, listen, I don't know where this went, but earlier on this morning, there was a tweet by Paul Sperry. This is around noon today.
I think I saw this.
Did you saw it? He said the White House press corps has petitioned CNN to open up the debate studio to reporters who, listen to how oddly specific this is. And I haven't seen anybody. I don't know. Maybe it was if somebody can super chat in or call in later on, let me know, or tag me in the Gilded or whatever the hell it is to let me know what the update on this was. I have not been able to find anything. That the White House press corps has petitioned CNN to open up the debate studio to reporters who for now have to watch a feed from a building across the street because they believe that there may be, and here's what he put in quotes, a medical emergency involving one of the presidential candidates requiring on-scene coverage.
And so many weird things about that. First of all, it came from the White House, right?
According to Paul Sperry.
Right. And so you're more concerned about having reporters there to report the medical emergency? Very odd. Very odd.
It's just too oddly specific.
Yeah.
Speaking of oddly specific, well, how do you like my shirt tonight? I know we're talking about milk, so I'm wearing my lactose tolerant shirt.
That's very inclusive of you. I love it. I love it.
It's got the milk. It's got some F-16s. It's got some cows.
All bad for the environment, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Well, whatever. At least my tummy can handle it.
But milk is raw, correct?
it is raw.
Okay.
So I just wanted to put that out there. Who the hell knows? All right. More on our little grab bag situation over here. Here's another one. Jay, did you see the woman who flashed everybody? She's an Edmonton Oiler fan. She was at one of the first rounds of the hockey playoffs, and she pulled her big boobs out, and got viral.
No, I did not see that.
Yeah, this is the chick. She went viral for pulling her boobs out in the stands. Anyway, Playboy hunted her down and offered her a deal, and now she has Can you imagine?
Wow.
Can you imagine if tomorrow night I went to Yankee Stadium and pulled my balls out? Who would sign me to a magazine deal?
Playgirl?
I wouldn't be in jail? I wouldn't go straight to jail?
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Talk about privilege, man.
Wow.
She's got a Playboy deal for flashing people in a public spot.
Incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
I did not see that. Well, the world we live in, Frank.
It is the world we live in. It's fucking ridiculous. All we want to do is air it out sometimes.
On a hot day like today?
Please. And, everyone send us to jail. All right. Here we go. Now, this one's going to be, this is weird. This is from the BBC, and you got to take a look at this one. Faces made of living skin make robots smile, and they couldn't have picked a creepier set of eyes.
Holy mackerel.
A creepier set of eyes. Japanese scientists have found a way to attach living skin to robot faces for more realistic smiles and other facial expressions.
Where did they get the skin?
I don't know. The breakthrough came from if you think that they are not growing all types of things a mile underground of all of these. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
The breakthrough came from copying tissue structures in people, according to the team at Tokyo University. The prototype may appear more Haribo than human-like, but but the researchers say that it paves a way to making convincingly realistic moving humanoids with self-healing skin that will not easily rip or tear. I mean,
it's Wolverine.
It's the Terminator. It's the Terminator.
Wow.
That's the synthetic skin that heals too. The artificial skin is made in the lab using living cells. Not only is it soft like real skin, but it can repair itself if cut, these scientists say. Past attempts to attach it proved difficult, though. The team tried using mini hooks as anchors, but those damaged the skin as the robot moved. In people, the skin is tethered to underlying structures by ligaments, tiny ropes of flexible collagen and elastin. To recreate that, the researchers drilled lots of little holes into the robot and applied a gel containing collagen and then a layer of artificial skin on top. The gel plugs the holes and tethers the skin to the robot. And
this is what we might be seeing on the debate stage tonight.
No doubt. Well, what do you think? I mean,
Wow.
I have a dream of finding a plastic surgeon who is at least politically, I would say apolitical or right-leaning, somebody who could at least hang with what I'm trying to get to here, to come in and tell me the absolute, or especially if we have anybody that has, if it could be a surgeon combined with a CIA master of disguise to tell us, because I've seen plenty of people do presentations on the internet of how they can just disappear in a crowd in a moment, put on some prosthetics, full masks, full heads, whatever the hell it is, and turn themselves into somebody you cannot recognize them anywhere.
Yeah.
It's another thing altogether to say that a person is going to turn into a very well-known public figure without causing any kind of who the hell is that?
Right.
So I wonder about that as far as the whole mask idea. Cloning is something else.
Yeah.
But as far as masks go,
well, I mean, most of us will only ever see these people on television anyway. So a lot of us don't have a real life comparison to make. I could see how they could get away with that a little bit easier, I guess. I remember reading an article a long time ago. I don't remember who the woman was. I just remember she worked for the CIA and she was the head of some department on disguises.
I've seen it.
And she briefed a president. Again, I think it was one of the Bushes. I think it was H.W. Bush. She briefed him in costume and he didn't know. And then apparently at one point in the interview, she took off the mask, basically highlighting to him how far the technology is advanced, the fact that they could even fool the president himself. That was in the 90s, right? Or 80s.
40 years ago.
Yeah. So you have to wonder how far the technology has gone. I don't know.
I just got tagged on the Gilded from Revolution. Says X22 Dave covered the medical emergency during the debate scenario today, and his spin is that Obama is setting up Joe, and with the 1 to 2 minute CNN delay, they could cut the feed so it's not broadcast, but then the reports would be all over social media, creating a groundswell for Biden to be removed with the 20. Listen, 1 to 2 minute delay. If you go on a commercial break and suddenly Biden's not there after 2 minutes, it doesn't matter if we saw him fall or not.
Right.
I mean, there's that. So I don't know. I don't know what the hell that's all about. If it's just about cleaning up terrible gaffes.
That's what it feels like to me. They're just hedging their bets because they don't know how long the cocktail is going to last.
Well, speaking of cocktails and speaking of milk and speaking of meat and everything else that we can make an innuendo about, we will be right back. We have a lot to do to be able to get, because in the second half, I know we have some nutrition stuff. We have to talk veganism, alkalinity, all that stuff in this first hour. But in the second half, you've got to see some of this Tucker Carlson in Australia thing, because it goes right hand in hand with the mentality of the networks that are hosting this debate tonight. And the biggest problem that we're facing as a nation, it's just like the psychopathy that we're up against. The cultural divide. It's really just the fracturing of reality. People's inability to see the same reality as the person next to them. It's crazy. And so we have to do that in the second half. It's huge.
Yep.
And hopefully we can move some of your super chats and everything else into the mix before we get off and reboot. So we will be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
One of the best.
It's definitely we're definitely there now. It's all classics.
Yeah.
Okay, so here. Let me just say to everybody out there real quick, on SoundCloud, so available on podcast and also on YouTube. On the Quite Frankly YouTube channel front page, there is a section there just for book club serials, and there we have. I just put the robe up there from this past Easter time read. You got to go check it out. It's up there on the book club playlist section on YouTube and the audio podcast on SoundCloud. Enjoy it. We will post Dandelion Wine after we are done reading, I don't know, sometime around August, right before we start reading Neverending Story together, which is crazy because my producer, Krista, sent me over a link here that this year is actually the 40th anniversary of the release of Neverending Story.
Really?
And in August, we're going to be reading the source material for the movie.
Very cool.
I can't wait. Dude, have you done any reading with us yet?
I have not.
You gotta.
I know.
Oh, so go out there and enjoy the robe at whatever pace you want. It's public now. And please join in on a live reading session at some point in the future. It's very, very gratifying, and it nurtures the soul, especially the robe. That was wonderful at Easter. All right. Here's what I want to throw out there, and then we'll get into some things that came up on the show recently. Experts are asking whether milk is racist. Okay, don't think too much about this, because if you think it will, you can't think for this to make sense. All right. Experts are asking whether milk is racist as part of a taxpayer-funded research project into connections between milk and colonialism. A taxpayer-funded... I mean, out of all the things you could say that might be wrong with dairy today...
I mean, I had to send this to you because one, it is taxpayer-funded money, but I don't know, Frank, I mean... There's this push, and we always talk about this on the show, but this is like the theme of my whole life now, I feel like, is that it's always, they have got to find any angle to find something that's natural and that humans have been consuming over, thousands, hundreds of thousands of millions of years, whatever you want to believe, but, as far back as we can go. And to label it racist it's almost beyond, it's like, have we reached peak ridiculous yet?
No, not yet.
But, I mean... And when it's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine about this, that when I started an Instagram page and I was defending things like red meat, and again, I do this, you know me, Frank, I do this out of pure and total, biochemistry, fact-based. Like I try to remove the label of milk or meat, because when you do that, it makes it a lot easier to understand what we're talking about. Like you don't eat meat or milk and then absorb it as meat or milk. You have to break it down into its individual constituents, into its elements and its amino acids and fatty acids. So that's how I try to look at things, because it makes it much less passionate, right? When you think about something like red meat, when you're thinking about, it's just these amino acids and these fatty acids, it's way different when you say red meat, or if I say leucine, the branched chain amino acid. It's a completely different argument. Yeah. But to me, when I first started doing social media, I saw this push to label everything that was red meat, anything that was like that, this right-wing thing. And I hadn't had my complete awakening yet at this point. So I was very puzzled by the fact that I'm like, well, why would eating red meat make me right-wing? Like I didn't understand it at all. Now I have a completely different set of eyes to see this, which is why I sent this to you. It's fascinating. The political labels and ramifications that come from doing something like defending red meat. Because at that time, I'm not right-wing now. I'm just like I love when Donald Trump says, I'm just common sense. That's what I've always said about myself. I'm just fact-based common sense. I'm not putting myself in your box. But it's just interesting to me that we now can waste taxpayer money on deciding whether or not milk is associated with racism, or red meat has been associated with that as well. Listen
to this shit, okay? Listen to what the museum, okay? Because the Milk Project will be based at the History of Science Museum in Oxford. Which announced that it had been receiving funding. The size of the grant has not yet been revealed. But, we were just talking about how ridiculous CNN looks by showing how galaxy brain they were to designing this really intricate and necessary mute button system.
Have you ever heard of such a thing?
Listen to this galaxy brain word salad bullshit over here. The museum said, by focusing on communities intersecting industry aid in government regulation, the project aims to center on heritage as a vital framework for understanding how colonial legacies influence contemporary issues and affect people's lives. Through milk diaries, archival research, and participatory podcasting, it will investigate historical engagement with milk, building networks with consumers and producing in Britain and Kenya. The project will question both the imagined and real aspects of milk, revealing the intimate and political nature of this everyday substance. What a fucking waste of life.
Yeah. And the lead author, Sharp, Dr. Sharp, I pulled this from that same article, took part in a talk titled Milk and Whiteness during a Welcome Trust exhibit on milk in 2022. What the things that people waste their lives on, Frank, is shocking to me. You are a waste of space.
It's a waste of life.
Yeah.
It's
really
a waste of time, money, and the reason why I say waste of life is because you have to commit your time, your soul, your time on this earth, your brain to this.
You do.
And the fact that some people do it enthusiastically because they're able to. This is the peak. This is a perfect example of midwitism right here. Whenever somebody talks about how we're really just living under the yoke of a crazy horde of midwits, people that are just at that middle level intelligence that dive into subjects like this that are absolutely nonsensical, but find a thesaurus somewhere to put together a galaxy-brained explanation for why they have to do this useless thing. That's a midwit. and I mean, this is money. This is somebody out. I don't care who in the UK, who you are in the UK and how much you make and how much you're taxed. Even if 50 cents or whatever the hell you guys have as your currency went toward this, it's too much. I want it back.
Yeah. And I wonder how the Maasai warrior tribe in Africa, who live on the milk, meat, and blood of their animals, I wonder how they feel about that. Do they feel that milk is racist? I mean, I think I've said this before on this show, but humans have gotten to this really strange tipping point in society where we no longer have to worry about the day-to-day survival of the species. And so now we can engage in considerably less relevant, important, and useful tasks like this.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like when your daily life consists of surviving, hunting and gathering and reproducing and doing all, you don't have time to even consider these nonsensical things. But so it really begs the question, is advancement in society really ultimately beneficial? Because all you end up doing is backtracking and creating these useless papers. And we're going to talk about a useless paper as we transition into the debate topic later on, because I think if this isn't peak stupid, I found another one that I think the audience might consider peak stupid. But that's where we are with science today. This is considered science.
Yeah, it is. It's considered science. That's the crazy thing. So then here, let's get into a few other things that I have. Oh, did you see, by the way, Thomas Massey, the list of things that he proposed for people to take a vote on? Obviously, they're pie in the sky. Things like abolishing the Federal Reserve. But one of the things he put in there was a proposal to end the raw milk ban. I mean, I don't even know why we have to do that. Again, we're now trying to repeal places where the federal government has overstepped, right? And we're calling those things freedoms, right? Whereas originally, right, it's the people who grant this. We allow the government to do certain things. Now it's the government saying, well, we control everything, and we need now to petition to have our right to have raw milk back. I mean, the whole, as you always say, right, the paradigm is completely backwards, and we've lost the plot on what the Constitution was originally intended. But I think that would be fantastic because, again, that would end the war on the Amish farmers in Pennsylvania. Raw milk is already legal in California. You can go into a supermarket and buy raw milk. It's not a problem. I've been consuming raw milk for years. It's not an issue. I don't know why it's an issue other than control. Okay. So then let's just jump into this then, because this was part of it. Now, my friend Ian Jacklin was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I've known him for a long, long time, and I produced a lot of his earlier shows when he was doing some really interesting interviews with certain doctors, some of them Western trained, that just hated the way that the chronic diseases like cancer and stuff were being approached. So they developed their own methods, and a lot of them having a lot of success. people like this Dr. Bernardo was very controversial with people. He goes with the alkaline diet. He's one of those figures out of many who have been destroyed by, the AMA labeled quacks, despite how many people will speak up for them and say, listen, I came under their care. I was written off. By my doctors, and he gave me a new lease on life. Like, this happens a lot, where people are told by their doctors, make your final arrangements, enjoy time with your family, you get things done, and before it's all over. And they'll find one person or another. There's many that have been destroyed over the years, and their testimony means nothing. An affidavit is a very consequential piece of evidence in a trial. They don't care about this stuff. Anyway, over all the years that my friend Ian has done his work, he has come to certain conclusions, and very, very, staunch conclusions about where the hell, what the issue is with sick people, especially when it comes to cancer, and what the solution is. And I had a few things that he said here. What has he said? And here's what he said. Let me hold on. Wait. I want to get the thing up. Okay. He said the disease is acidosis. The cure is alkalinity. I have been open to this for hold on, no. It's alkalinity. He says most people who work in this business don't even know that the stomach's main job is to make baking soda, aka sodium bicarbonate, to pass the food through. It doesn't make acid to melt and digest the food. Our bodies are made to take electrons to work, not protein, fat, or carbs. So he's getting into things that are on an atomic level. He's not really talking about, when he brings up the atomic stuff, I don't know how to react to it. But he says vegetables have electrons, meat and dairy and sugar has protons and neutrons that suck the electrons out of you. It sucks the life out of you. And all he said, he makes it very simple, is that the problem is acidosis and the cure is alkalinity, and that meat and dairy and sugar will destroy you, and that you have to go vegan. So I wanted to find, because there's some things that made me feel, I've been open to this kind of stuff for years, like the alkalinity, looking into it. I've done the pH test strips and stuff. I've tested some stuff, but any statements this absolute, they silver bulletish, usually make me a little skeptical. And I want to try to find middle ground here, because he even told me, I know I'm throwing a lot at you at this, but I think it's pretty simple what he just said here. But he even told me that he's not even a strict vegan, that he's 80% vegan and 20% he will have a steak and some raw milk. I don't know any vegans who will occasionally have a steak and raw milk.
Well, clearly then he's not doing veganism for the ideological. He's doing it for the true, what he perceives to be health benefits.
Yes.
Okay. That makes much more sense then to me.
Right. And it's not strict, because he says that there's an acidity level with meat and with dairy that he wants to keep it at an 80-20 clip right there and go everything vegan in between. Now, I don't know where you want to start with this, because it pulls in things like alkalinity that we haven't spoken about yet. And then, of course, there's just meat, and that's huge for you right now. And this,
yeah, I know. It's hard to. I've been thinking about this a lot when you approached me about it, because it's such a massive topic. But I hadn't read what you had read just now to the audience, so I want to try to start with some middle ground. But I also want to, again, to the best of my ability, point out where I think there is error. The stomach does not produce bicarbonate. The stomach produces hydrochloric acid through the parietal cells. It produces acid. In fact, our stomach's pH is so low, it is on par with other scavengers and carnivores in the wild. It is the pancreas that produces bicarbonate. And the reason is because in digestion, in fact, the stomach is actually also called the acid barrier, because it's designed to kill pathogens on the way in, because a lot of pathogens find their way in through food. So the stomach chemically and mechanically digests food. It then passes through the pyloric valve into the small intestine. The duodenum is is the upper level of the small intestine. That is where the pancreas will secrete bicarbonate to increase the pH or make it more alkaline, because the mucosal layer of the stomach can handle that incredibly acidic environment. We're talking like sulfuric acid level acidity. In fact, there's plenty of papers I can show you that that show as our stomach acid decreases or the pH increases, you're more susceptible to infection for that very reason. And you're not able to extract nutrients as well or as efficiently. So the stomach is supposed to be very acidic. The pancreas then secretes bicarb into the duodenum in order to increase the alkalinity, because the mucosal layer of the small intestine is not nearly set up for that. And the pancreatic enzymes that come along with the bicarb that do a lot of the nutrient absorption, they're designed to work at a higher physiological pH than what's in the stomach. So you see, the problem I find is that there's an oversimplistic view of the human body. I can find you, the oral pH, the stomach pH, the duodenal pH, the large intestinal pH, they're all different. They're all different. Some are acidic, some are alkaline, and there's a reason for that. And then you're not even talking now about what I assume that most proponents of the alkaline diet are talking about, which is systemic pH, the blood pH. Now that is incredibly tightly controlled. You're talking, and I guess maybe I should back up and tell people what pH is. pH stands for power of hydrogen. It's the concentration of hydrogen ions in a solution. That's essentially what pH is. And it's a logarithmic scale. 7 is water, distilled water, being the middle, neutral. Anything above that is alkaline, going up to about 14. And anything below that is acidic. So the stomach, just for reference.
I thought alkaline was in the middle, and we go no, it wasn't.
Neutral is 7.
Neutral
in the middle.
7, alkaline.
Alkaline or more basic is 7 to 14, and then 7 or below 7 is acidic. And for reference, the stomach's pH is 1.5. And that's roughly where battery acid, sulfuric acid, depending on the dilution, is about 1.5. And that's on par with scavengers. And again, I pulled a bunch of papers. I mean, I know people aren't going to want to go looking through papers, but because I genuinely love to understand where people are coming from. And so now let me jump over real quick to where I think there's a lot of overlap. I think a lot of times when people have success with something, and I find this a lot in clinical practice, but also just through the research, very often it's we've talked about cancer being a metabolic disease on this show before. When people leave a diet and a lifestyle that has contributed to metabolic dysfunction and therefore cancer, very often it doesn't really matter what they go to, because it's more about what they're leaving behind, if that makes sense, right? Like, in my opinion, a vegan diet is nutrient deficient. Now, your friend Ian is not succumbing to those nutrient deficiencies because the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet are animal foods, and he's consuming them 20% of the time. That tells you how powerful animal nutrition is, because I know some people who do the same thing. Well, I eat eggs and salmon every once in a while. That's where you're getting most of your nutrients from. Because as we've talked about before, protein, not all created equal for a variety of reasons. Plant and animal protein is very different in how it's absorbed, how bioavailable it is, the amino acid profile, all of those things. So that's very different. So when you're leaving a Western diet and you go to a vegan diet, very often people will have tons of success, because what are they doing? They're eating fruits and vegetables, which have micronutrients, but they're also leaving behind all the junk, right? But I have vegans in my program now who are not doing a whole food vegan diet. They're not eating fruits and vegetables. They're eating vegan junk food. And guess what, Frank? They have all the same issues that the supposed meat eaters have. What do they have in common? They're eating highly processed foods. Whether you're an omnivore, a meat eater, a vegan, whatever, if you're eating highly processed foods, and there are highly processed versions of keto foods, you're still going to have metabolic dysfunction.
You mean like seed oils?
Exactly.
Okay.
You can find products, you know how I'm a big proponent of ketogenic nutrition, but not just in the macronutrient sense, in the quality sense. And you can find Duncan Hines brownie mix that calls itself keto. That's junk food. But you can manipulate the macros to make it keto. And so what I'm trying to say is that I think that there's a lot of carryover from what he's saying, because a lot of times it's what you're leaving behind that can correct the underlying metabolic dysfunction that can improve outcomes in cancer and in other health conditions. So I do think there's a ton of overlap there. And by the way, I'm always very, I really admire people who are seeking truth, because that's what I am doing. And like I told you before, when I approach something like red meat, I try to approach it not from like the animal that it was perspective, but the human food that it is. You digest it. How does your body react to that food? How does it break it down? What does it turn it into, the individual constituents? He's talking about electrons. I have a whole video on my Rumble channel on how food becomes essentially the proton gradient that creates energy in the cell. So he does have a knowledge, but I think it's incomplete. And then I also want to say that the blood pH, which is where you would assume that he's talking about, because if you're not arguing that the individual organ systems of the body, which all have a different pH, need to be alkaline. I mean, I could point to almost every study in the medical literature that tells you how the stomach produces acid. So it produces acid, hydrochloric acid, through the parietal cells, and it also produces something called pepsinogen, which in the presence of hydrochloric acid is cleaved into pepsin, which helps reduce and break down proteins into their individual amino acids. That's the anatomy and physiology of the stomach. And then again, bicarb comes in later through the pancreas in the duodenum when the alkaline environment needs to be created for those enzymes to do their job to extract the rest of the nutrients. So do you understand that we're talking like in the different organ systems, there are different levels of pH that are critical for functionality. So to say that acidic, that the whole body is either acidic or alkaline is overly simplistic. That's not the reality of the human body.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Yeah. You see, there was, and a lot of this, I mean, obviously I would not be able to have gone into everything you just did about bicarb and the pancreas and all that stuff, but there's just so much that just didn't feel right about just going all in on one end.
Right.
And I wanted to see where the hell that was, and I know that you don't recommend to people, and maybe that's where you can talk right now. What are some certain situations where you would? Is there any situation where you would, even in a transitional situation for somebody, if they're working through something, put them on something that resembles a vegan diet, even if it's just for a little while? Like, is there any particular situation that you would say, listen, this is what we want to do for a little while, and I think that we should stay away from meat for a little bit, and we're just going to, I don't know, we're going to go this way. Is there ever a situation that you would do that?
I would say probably not, other than potentially things like alpha-gal syndrome. And when you're dealing with legitimate food allergies where you need to go on an elimination diet. But again, since then you're restricting nutrients, you need to maximize the nutrients and the food that you are consuming to its nutrient value. And the nutrient value or nutrient density of animal products are far more than plant products. That's, there was a recent paper in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2022 that broke down food into its individual constituents, and the top 10 foods were all animal foods when it came to nutrient density. So the short answer is no, unless it was a very, very specific situation, because I would be very concerned about nutrient deficiencies. In alpha-gal syndrome, in an allergy to red meat, I may use things like fish and eggs, but I know this is going to sound harsh, but I see no utility in a truly complete vegan diet, absent some pathology that I can't think of at the moment. Because again, it's not about, I'm really trying to remove the labels here and be very intentional about what I'm saying, because this whole thing breaks down to a chemist once said, you are not what you eat, you are what your body absorbs. And that's all I'm thinking about, right? So if you're trying to heal from something, whatever you're trying to do, maximizing your nutritional input is critical, including in cancer. And I want to get to before we leave this topic, I know we're not in a rush to get through it, but I want to address the cancer thing because I think there's a missing nuance there. And then I also want to address the fact that you said you had gotten those pH strips, right? Presumably to test your urine, right?
Well, urine and saliva. Okay. Because they're usually different.
So this is very important. And this is where I think the alkaline diet falls apart. And I think this is the fundamental misunderstanding of the human body. And let me tell you something. The papers that I pulled that talked about cancer and tumor acidity, explaining how the cancer environment works when it comes to alkalinity or acidity, they also got it wrong. And I mean, I know that's a bold statement for, what's this guy telling, that these researchers got it wrong. I'm going to explain to you why I believe they got it wrong. So in the body, there exists buffering systems. There's multiple buffering systems. So, and there's an equation for this buffering system. I'm going to try to make it real simple because it's like a long chemical equation. But essentially what's happening is the pH of the blood, remember I told you the neutral is 7. Anything above that is alkaline. So the true pH of the blood is very tightly controlled. 7.35 to 7.45 is the pH of the blood, slightly alkaline. That is absolutely true. Why the body must maintain that pH level is because metabolic physiological processes happen at that pH. Enzymes, proteins folding, everything happens at a specific pH, which is why when we do experiments in vitro, in test tubes, we have to recreate what's called in the medical literature physiological pH, because it doesn't do us any good to do an experiment in the ether and then extrapolate that to the human body if we're not doing it in the environment of the human body. So you'll very often see physiological pH mentioned in the medical literature. So they're trying to mimic the environment of the human body. And that's very tightly controlled. But the equation goes like this. It's just really hard to explain. But so it's carbon dioxide and water combined to make something called carbonic acid. That is a weak acid, okay? And that part of the equation is reversible. So carbonic acid can turn into CO2 and water. And that's going to become important later because when you need to alter if you have a too high of an acid load, in order to alter that, you must breathe out carbon dioxide. That's why we breathe out, one of the reasons we breathe out carbon dioxide, because that's that buffering system working in real time, because carbonic acid will also interchange with bicarbonate. So that's part of this equation, which mops up extra hydrogen protons. Remember, I told you that pH is the measure of the concentration of hydrogen protons. So when something is acidic, it has too many hydrogen protons. So bicarb will come in and mop up that hydrogen proton. Okay, so now we're removing the acidity. And how does that acidity leave the body? That bicarb can turn into carbonic acid. And that carbonic acid, I told you, can now dissociate into water and carbon dioxide. And we can breathe out the carbon dioxide. And that increases the alkalinity of the blood, bringing it back into that beautiful sweet spot, 7.35 to 7.45. So that's the equation shifting to the left. That's the respiratory system balancing our acid-base load. The renal system also does that, the kidneys. So they do that in a more long-term version of the equation. And they will either hold on to bicarbonate if we need to buffer, or it will pee out hydrogen if we have too much acidity. So that's that equation that's shifting constantly, literally constantly. And the reason so now you might be able to see now, I just told you that urinating out hydrogen protons will increase the alkalinity. So can you see now why maybe testing your urinary pH may not be indicative of your systemic blood pH? Because the urinary pH is the right side of that equation. It is the buffering system. You're actually measuring the effectiveness of your renal buffering system. That's called the carbonic acid bicarbonate.
You mean it's always
system.
going to be acidic?
If you are too acidic. So you'll pee out less hydrogen if the body is more alkaline. So it's what I'm saying is it's constantly moving. And to prove that to you, test your urinary pH after a heavy workout. It will be acidic.
What I was told is that, especially for somebody who has a very serious chronic illness or an acute illness, you have somebody like a Dr. Bernardo, actually, who is very, very heavy on alkalinity being the key to reversing this, because acidosis is the issue that needs to be cured. Mm-hmm. They would say that it's you would see somebody retaining acid, holding it in, and that actually your pee would be a little bit more alkaline if you were in a state where you were in a lot of trouble. And the real issue was trying to find a way to the body to flush all that out, and if you're in a good state, if you're in a healthy balance, that your mouth should be a little bit, your saliva should be a little bit more alkaline in the morning. Your pee should be acidic because it means you're getting it out of your body. And that was always the if you found that reversed, that would be something to to hone in on. That's what I was taught.
And there is some truth to that. But what I'll say is that it's the arrow of causality is reversed, meaning that it's not the acidic environment isn't creating the pathology. It's the pathology creating the acidic environment. And that's really important when it comes to cancer. But you just mentioned, so if you have kidney disease and there's some advanced form of kidney disease where the kidneys are unable to, especially late stage renal, from the research that I read, even mild kidney failure is actually, the kidneys still retain their ability to control the pH, because remember, if your pH goes outside that 7.35 to 7.45 range, you're going to experience some pretty severe consequences. And I was even mentioning this to Nurse Jenny, and she said, medical intervention is necessary if your blood becomes too acidic or too alkaline. So what I'm arguing is that it's actually not possible to control your blood pH until, if it was possible, humans wouldn't exist. But it's not possible to control it through diet, because that buffering system is constantly counteracting that. And that's called the Le Chatelier's principle, where in chemistry, the equation is always shifting to the right and the left based on the environment that it's in. But what you just said is absolutely correct about cancer. And I want to just read this to you because I think this is incredibly important, coming from, So this is a paper that I found that is really interesting. So the paper is from Frontiers in Oncology 2022. It's called Tumor Acidity, From Hallmark of Cancer to Target of Treatment. And I want to read you just 2 paragraphs that I think really, it summarizes why I think people have gotten this a little bit backwards and are missing the nuance. It's not that cancer thrives in an acidic environment, is that cancer creates the acidic environment in which to thrive. And there is a big difference in those 2 points. So from this paper, cancer cells have an inverted pH gradient, meaning that their extracellular and their intracellular pHs are acid and alkaline respectively. And so this acid shift in the tumor microenvironment. So think of a tumor cell, and then you think of the microenvironment as like the environment just outside of the tumor cell. So inside the tumor cell itself, it's actually alkaline. And why is that? Because an acidic environment could create cellular death, apoptosis. But the cancer cell, because of its broken metabolism, will overproduce sugar. So this is another place where I totally agree with Ian. Sugar is a huge problem. In fact, cancer cells will shift to exclusively glycolysis. And so I'm going to read to you in a moment. That's just the metabolism of sugar. And that's how they create the acidic environment in which to proliferate. But it's not the cancer cell itself, the tumor cell. That's actually alkaline, which is shocking. I actually was shocked by that. The tumor cell is pumping out those hydrogen protons and the lactate from sugar fermentation, because it will self-destruct if it retains that acidic environment. And they're actually talking about using that against the cancer cell as a form of therapy. So I know this might be confusing for people, but it's really important. The acidic shift in the tumor microenvironment is closely associated with hypoxia, but more specifically, a high activated glycolysis in tumor cells, which is burning sugar. Even in normoxia, which is normal oxygen, 80% of all malignant tumors use aerobic glycolysis, which is described as the Warburg effect, which is the metabolism of sugar. According to the present knowledge, the shift in the tumor acid-base balance promotes proliferation, apoptosis avoidance, invasiveness, metastatic potential, aggressiveness, immune evasion, and treatment resistance. On the other hand, inversion of the pH gradient in tumors could be a weakness that will allow for development of new promising therapies. It's possible to create acid stress inside the cancer cell by inhibiting proton release. So you see what they're saying? They're actually trying to create an acid load inside the tumor cell so that it self-destructs. So this is what I mean by when you make a general statement like cancer thrives in an acidic environment. That's not true. Cancer creates an acidic environment from which it can then proliferate. And then they go on to say, maybe we can use an alkaline diet to squash the tumor microenvironment, which is acidic, and we could turn that alkaline with an alkaline diet, but then we can target cancer cells with some kind of metabolic drug that could stop it from pumping those hydrogen protons out, creating an acidic environment inside the cell. So they actually want to reverse. Remember I said the cancer cells have an inverted pH gradient. They want to re-invert it so that the cells self-destruct. But where they get this wrong is in the 2 papers that they reference talking about an alkaline diet, they reference measuring an alkaline diet's effectiveness by measuring urinary pH, and that is incorrect. There is no paper in the medical literature that exists that shows you can influence, 1, that the urinary pH and the blood pH are correlated. I've never seen that. And 2, that you can influence the blood pH in any meaningful way for any meaningful amount of time through diet alone. If you could, Frank, you would die. You think about it. If you were constantly eating an alkaline diet and you could actually shift your blood so far alkaline, and you can do this experiment with yourself with hyperventilation. Hyperventilation is an excess breathing. And what are you breathing out? CO2.
Yeah.
And what did I tell you? That CO2 is a mechanism to blow off acid, right? So when you do that, you are actually increasing your blood alkalinity. But what happens if you hyperventilate and you don't stop hyperventilating? Eventually, you pass out. One of the reasons I think you pass out is your body is stopping you from hyperventilating because you're creating a very dangerous physiological environment in the blood. You are actually altering your pH. That's what it would feel like if you ate food that could shift your alkalinity so far in the right direction, meaning side of the equation, that you could force your blood north of 7.45 pH. You would feel the tingling, you would feel the lightheadedness, and you would eventually pass out. That's what hyperventilation is. And when you breathe into a paper bag, you're holding on and breathing back in more carbon dioxide to balance that pH.
It makes sense. It makes holy shit. Are you right about it being complex?
Yeah.
I mean, and again, listen, I'll have to listen to this episode once or twice and just listen to your sections a couple more times just to really have it start sinking in. But the one thing that keeps popping up in mind is that I every time we talk, and even when you're not here, we're doing just articles or anything about health or anything else that is discovered about the body, it just never ceases to amaze me how intricate our bodies are. How somebody once told me that the body is the most advanced pharmacy in the world. So I mean, we're talking about other things here too. We're talking about the regulation of gas and everything. So it's not even just biochemical. It's also gaseous and gas exchanges in our lungs and everything else. And then these regulatory systems that we have that actually change from bodily compartment to bodily compartment, from organ to organ. They all have their own regulatory systems. It's really mind bending. That's why, listen, I understand, and that's what I told Ian too. And I'd love to have. I told him, I gave him the number too. I said, if you hear anything in that first half, you want to call in. I said, it's not a debate. We're all on the same side here, because naturally his guard is up, because most people are combative about things. I said, that's not the way it is with Jay. Nope. But I want to ask some of these things, because knowing the complexities of the human body, it can't be that simple. No. I mean, and that's my point, that we wouldn't have survived if you could alter the pH in an alkaline or acidic way. You know what I'm saying? Like it just, we just couldn't survive. And there's a reason that there are multiple redundancies in the buffer systems as well. It's not one of the biggest is that carbonic acid bicarbonate buffer system. But I highly encourage people to go look this up online. You can find great videos where people will walk you through, and the complexity is amazing. I mean, to study for this episode, I went back to my chemistry, in my biochemistry workbooks, like from grad school. And I was like, looking up, because we studied this buffering system. And I remember where I was vividly the first time I had this light bulb moment of this carbonic acid buffering system. And it just, like, all those things, like, they just clicked to you. And I was explaining to you the hyperventilation. The way this textbook wrapped my mind around it, it was like, God, it's just so fascinating and so amazing when you understand that, the body isn't so simplistic. Yeah. It's the complete opposite. And again, there's so much truth into what Ian and what other people are saying. I think my goal is to provide the missing puzzle pieces so that people can create that more complete knowledge. Because you're right, we are absolutely on the same page. I would never deny somebody's personal experience if they went on an alkaline diet and fix their cancer. My assertion is that it wasn't the alkaline portion of the diet, it was something else. But I would never take that away from people. But I do want to find the truth. Why? Because I want to help somebody else. And if I tell somebody else, well, it must just be the pH effects of this diet, I feel like I'm being disingenuous, because none of my research, none of my training, none of my biochemistry knowledge, nothing I've ever read tells me that's the case. The human body does not work that way. And as much as I would love it to be that simple, it just isn't. Let's take a really quick break. When we come back, I have a fun little thing, exercise I want to give you of just because we're talking about ultra processed foods. Yeah, I want to give you a fun little exercise real quick, and then I want to shift gears, and I want to spend at least the last half hour of the show listening and just talking about what Tucker Carlson just did in Australia.
Love it.
Okay, so everybody, don't go anywhere. In fact, share the show far and wide. Take the link, send it out to everybody you know, your friends, your family, your enemies. Bring them in for the second half. It's going to be great. And then after that, we're going to get back together 5 minutes after we wrap up to have a nice little relaxing watch party together. All right, don't go anywhere. Be right back.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out to press the like button. Thank you.
Let's watch something else, butthead. No way. Those chicks at school said they love this show. And now we must figure out why, so that we can score with them.
Welcome to Intermission. Yeah, Intermission.
You are now entering, quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Watch Quite Frankly and stuff.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
All my fellow Franciscans.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly. Quite frankly. We'll be in the gulag with you, Frank.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Yo, what's good, Frank?
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly podcast.
I want to get a Coke. Can I get a Coke?
So everybody watch, Quite Frankly, with Frank.
Quite frankly.
How dare you?
Welcome back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's quite frankly, now we're on the other side of the intermission. We have a little bit of a shorter, we're going to go for another maybe 47 minutes. And then we're going to end a little bit early so I can fire up another one. Remember, everybody, wherever you're watching, you can continue watching there except YouTube. Anybody who's running their stream on YouTube is rolling the dice tonight. So,
You think they're looking for reasons to cancel accounts before an election? They did that in 2020, right?
They don't need reasons because even though they have very vague terms of service and community guidelines, they've taken down many of my friends who have never even had a warning before, who police themselves at every syllable they uttered. They made a code word for everything if they wanted to have a controversial conversation in a responsible way. They put disclaimers on top of disclaimers, and it was just one day in October in 2020. It was a bloodbath.
It's the normalization of self-censorship, like we talked about in the intro. It's just amazing what we allow ourselves to get. It should be outrageous.
Yeah, it should. It should be. Okay, so here's what I got. I got a couple of super chats. Let me get to those. Let me see here. Stowstube says, I'm just going to throw this out there once again because it gives me another excuse to support great private media. Absolutely love when Jay and Frank get together. Always an excellent listen. Thank you, gentlemen. And, of course, shout out to the Frankleys. Thank you, Stowstube. Yeah. Wonderful. He's a fellow Massachusetts
Masshole?
man. Masshole. I was trying to be nice.
That's okay. We from Massachusetts, we can take it.
I'm trying to be nice here. Shotzi says, two of the best in the studio tonight. What a treat. Jay Britt says, hey, Frank and Jay, to be fair to Ian, what I heard him say on your show was that the pancreas produced the baking soda, not the stomach. Okay, well, I read back. I read back what was in the email. What an email. So I'm maybe I missed something, but I copy and pasted there, not the stomach. I'm not taking sides. I have not seen Ian before on your show. Great topic. I love Ian. He's a good friend of mine. What he also warned against apple cider vinegar because he said that it's not acid. The acid is not the issue. That we need is a $3 box of baking soda is the cure for it. He was talking about baking soda as opposed to apple cider vinegar and stuff. And I just took things out of the email. I know Ian would come on and talk again, and that's all
Yeah.
If I got something wrong, then I'll correct it for sure. But I just took right out of email just so I had a little bit of reference to set the table for Jay tonight. Cody says, never mind, he already answered it. It was just behind the live stream. Oh, okay. Oh, wait, no. Cody said, can you ask Jay about the people who cure their cancer by juicing? I'm not a vegan, but if I ever got cancer, then I would try it. There's so many cases of people curing their cancer by juicing and going full vegan. Oh, never mind, he said he already answered it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's really what you leave behind. And I think, honestly, if you're juicing, you're probably also going very hypocaloric, which means you're probably inducing some mild state of autophagy. I just think there's a million other reasons and just because we don't know them doesn't mean they don't exist. And that's why I'm just, I'm not anti-vegan because I want to be. It's because that's what the data says to me.
And what Ian was, to Ian's credit again too, he had said that, if you have cancer, you were probably working on that for a long time.
He's totally right about that. And he's totally right about the Warburg effect and sugar. He's absolutely correct about that.
You're working on that a long time, and to what you said, to what you're leaving behind is a huge thing. And that's why it's just, I think about everybody in my life who've been stuck in certain loops for a while. I'm just like, get them out of it. Break that damn loop quick.
The sooner the better.
Yeah.
Because the body is miraculous at what it can do. I have seen it. I had a recent client who she's my client. Her husband, who was not my client, reversed his kidney disease. His doctors told him it was irreversible. And he's 78. Said it was irreversible. She just messaged me the other day. He just got his GFR and all of his kidney measurements back and no more disease. The doctors were like, I don't even know how that's possible.
Whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
And he's not even my client. She just really internalized all my information to her, gave it to her husband, and he reversed his kidney disease. I read the email and I was like, it's just incredible. I never even talked to this guy before.
Yeah. I also can't stand the stories. I've heard so many people say things like, not because of anything I've given them, but people who have just told me success stories, and the level of bewilderment that so many doctors express when they see that somebody in the care that they had seen no path for treatment, no alternative way to go, and really have just given them what the rest of their life is going to be like, whether it's a chronic issue that they'll have for decades or whether they only have a few years left, they think. And when they turn up and all of a sudden they are disease-free or something what seems to be miraculous has happened, they'll say things like, whatever you did, keep doing it. Or don't even tell me what you're doing.
I know. Because it's going to go against all my medical training.
Like, I don't even want to hear, like, almost like they want plausible deniability.
Yeah.
Like you're doing something illegal.
Well, there are some insurance potential liabilities in recommending certain things. And that's another reason, and that's another place where Ian and I probably really come together is that, I'm a huge advocate for, I think Western medicine has done more harm than good. I've said that a million times on this show. I've written blogs on amygdalin and B17. And I think that cancer is a metabolic disease. And I think that actually Ian probably thinks the same thing. I just think we're approaching it from a different angle in terms of, I want to fix mitochondrial metabolism because I think that solves the problem. And I don't think you can influence the pH through diet. But I think we're both approaching disease and cancer as I think he's approaching things as a metabolic problem, which is a wise way to go about it. I just think that there's some differences of opinion in how you get there.
Well, naturally, when you're trying to adjust diet, you are trying to adjust the metabolism.
Absolutely.
So it is a metabolic approach. No, if the path you're taking is to manage what you are consuming, then you are essentially trying to manage the way that your body metabolizes everything and
the nutrients it extracts from it, and again, what you're leaving behind, the things that very specifically, like seed oils, that hurt metabolism. And I don't mean, when I say metabolism, I don't mean it the way you might think I mean it. Metabolism is just the sum of all chemical processes in the human body.
Gotcha.
So we're talking mitochondrial health when I'm talking about getting rid of seed oils, not like I want to lose weight, not that kind of metabolism.
Well, thank you for bringing up a segue. First of all, Whiskey Pete on Rumble. We have one Rumble rant over there. And Whiskey Pete says, singing your praises all over Rumble. Well, thank you, Pete.
Love Rumble.
Yeah, Rumble. I'm very grateful for Rumble and sites like Rumble and Pilled and everybody. I mean, we're very lucky to have the new media landscape that we have right now, because about 4 years ago things were looking very scary.
Very.
Because it's just so it's I'm grateful for it. And ladies and gentlemen, on Rumble, we're going to be live there for the rest of the evening, so you can just hop along there or go to quitefrankly.tv. All right, let's see. I'm real quick. I'm going to run through these gold pills, and then I want to give you something else. C. Blanche says, I'm asinine. God bless y'all. Cave Toad says, what are Jay's thoughts on germ theory and ivermectin versus cancer? Is it pH thing, or does ivermectin T cells give T cells access? Be careful with this one, since we're still on YouTube. But germ theory is another thing that Ian naturally thinks people are coming from. I said, no. Jay is very, 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 very much in the terrain theory way of thinking. I mean, it's all terrain. But as far as ivermectin versus cancer,
I don't have a good answer for that, other than the fact that ivermectin is antiparasitic. And to what degree parasites interfere with mitochondrial metabolism is yet to be determined, but I suspect that might be where it lives. Yeah, I think that might be where the benefit may come from.
Cave Toad also says Chem 101 and Biology 101 on Quite Frankly. Nice.
Sorry about that.
Thanks for the refresher. And there you go. Okay, so let me give you this real quick. Here is a where the hell is it? Okay. Here is Jordan Peterson talking to some guy about. I saw this short pop up on YouTube. And I said, you know what, I'm going to keep this as a segue for Jay, and I want to ask him a very specific question about this. Here he is talking about asking somebody about ultra-processed foods.
The items in your average supermarket are ultra-processed.
And so what's the difference between processed and ultra-processed?
It's a fantastic and important question. So processing is a continuum. You take an apple, you slice that apple, you're processing it to some degree. You blend those apple slices in a smoothie, you're processing it even further, right?
Right.
But the whole idea of an ultra-processed food, that was actually something. The term was first devised with this nutrient profiling system in Latin America called NOVA. And an ultra-processed food is essentially a food that you couldn't possibly make in your own kitchen if you tried.
Cool Whip.
Yeah, these are food-like products.
Food-like products, that's right. That's a good one.
That involve...
They're sort of like food, except they're not edible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So ultra-processed. We talk about I mean, is there anything that you would add to that real quick?
Well, the NOVA system, by the way, classifies about 75% of foods as ultra-processed. So you're really getting into like a semantic argument, because he's right. Technically, even the meat that has to be, you have to process a cow, so it has to be processed to some degree. But I think really, ultimately, it's processing is the addition of ingredients for, shelf stability, texture, flavor, all those things that don't need to be there and can actually cause harm. Because again, as he said, you could put a couple of apples in a blender and make it a smoothie, and now it's technically processed. But I'm not worried about that kind of stuff. I'm more worried about additional elements that are added to foods. And I think that's mostly why I think NOVA actually breaks theirs down into ultra processed, processed, minimally processed. So they have like a bunch of different ratings. But,
okay.
Yeah.
So here's where the activity for the next 5 minutes comes from.
Okay.
Up on the screen, I've grabbed a page on Famous Amos cookies. Okay. Everybody's had Famous Amos at one point in their life, little tiny bags, whatever the hell it is. I went in there. I said, I'm going to go to Famous Amos. I'm going to grab the ingredients list. Enriched flour, riboflavin, semi-sweet chocolate, sugar, chocolate, cocoa butter, soy, lecithin, natural flavor, whatever the hell that is, sugar, now vegetable oil, soybean, palm kernel oil with TBHQ for freshness.
Yeah.
Contains 2% less molasses, salt, eggs, baking soda, natural artificial flavor, whey protein. But still, there's all those seed oils.
Yeah, and they're uniquely deleterious to human health, in my opinion.
So let me ask you this question. I have to assume that anything that is mass-produced, like Famous Amos, is looking for a nice mix of cost efficiency, for them to produce, and also preservation of the product so that it can survive on the shelves longer. If you were in control of the Famous Amos brand tomorrow, what ingredients would you swap out? And what would you replace like those seed oils with and all that shit that you think, I would never put that in my body? What would you swap them out with without exploding the price of the bag? And keep in mind that the fact that the company like Famous Amos has to maintain a national stockpile. So is it possible for Famous Amos, like brands, to provide what they do to every tiny deli and bodega in America without sacrificing quality of the that taste that everybody likes, or making it better without exploding the price? What would you swap out?
Well, certainly the seed oils would be the first thing to go. I think you said soy lecithin, that would also go. I would just replace that with sunflower lecithin, and that would be an adequate replacement, because most soy in this country is genetically modified, so you want to get rid of that. A really easy swap for the vegetable oils would be coconut oil. In fact, coconut oil has antimicrobial properties, so it might actually even contribute. Now, it would be a little bit more expensive. In fact, I think that's why a lot of these companies go with these seed oils. Some of them think it's for health because they're labeled heart healthy, but if they actually understand the research, they know that's not true. And but coconut oil is probably more expensive, but that would be a very easy swap, and you would significantly improve the healthfulness of that cookie. But in this experiment, because years ago I found a brand that made, actually it's funny, I found chocolate chip cookies that are very similar, small little ones, very similar to the Famous Amos cookies. And I have no affiliation with this brand, but I found them years ago because I was looking for alternatives that use things that I would use in my own kitchen. So if I was to make chocolate chip cookies, it would be pretty simple. Coconut oil, probably butter, and I would use like a combination of almond flour, coconut flour, chocolate chips, and probably allulose to sweeten it, and that's it. And those chocolate chip cookies come out amazing. But to your point, yeah, I mean, they wouldn't stay shelf stable, and there would be some issues if I was trying to mass produce them. If you're going to make them at home, that's the easiest way to do it. But there's a brand, and again, I have no affiliation, but if they want to sponsor, quite frankly, they probably should. Simple Mills is a brand that makes cookies, and I'm going to read you the ingredients because it's the same exact cookie. And if you try these chocolate chip cookies, I dare you to tell me the difference between this and Famous Amos, because I've had both, and there really isn't. So you've got your almond and coconut flour blend, chocolate chips using unsweetened chocolate and cocoa butter, organic coconut sugar, organic coconut oil, vanilla extract, sea salt, baking soda, cream of tartar, and rosemary to preserve for freshness.
That sounds great.
They're amazing. In fact, they may even be at the retreat this year. And so you're able to get away with...
Aurora's going to love that.
Yeah. They're chocolate chip cookies, Frank. It's not like you have to like close your eyes, get half drunk, and be like, oh, it's kind of a chocolate chip cookie. No, it's a chocolate chip cookie. And so... And
they got national distribution?
Yeah, you can find them in Stop and Shop or, wherever.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's my point, is that it can be done. But companies have to have the desire. Yeah, maybe they'll take a little bit of hit in the pocketbook in terms of their profit margin, but I don't know. It's doing the right thing to me. These are all real ingredients. Now, and you also have to be careful, by the way. This brand makes crackers where they will use sunflower oil. So the whole brand doesn't subscribe to this, which is really funny. But the chocolate chip cookies,
they
totally
passed the
clean,
test.
totally clean.
And in the Gilded right now had a couple of tags right there, like Rev and Katie Sky says also natural flavors. Frank is usually MSG. That's from Rev. Yeah. And Katie says natural flavors are actually the most toxic of the ingredients. High fructose corn syrup, something else that's super toxic, I can't recall. So yeah, whenever I see natural flavors, like, oh, that's nice and vague.
My podcast partner, who will be doing shows for, quite frankly, very soon, she did a great video on natural flavorings and all of the things, the misconceptions that can surround natural flavors. And I think it was very enlightening. I think she put that up on her Rumble page. But that's the thing. And Frank, let me just make one last point on this, because you might see this on social media every once in a while, the difference between even the same brand. And I want to make this point because what the US allows in the food supply compared to other countries, say like Europe or just like specifically the UK, I got this one amazing example. It's Quaker oatmeal, strawberries and cream. First of all, shocking, contains no strawberries. This is amazing. So I just want to read you the ingredients from the American version and then the UK version. And you can just, and this is like, my point is that I don't think it's not possible. That's a really poor grammatically constructed sentence. I'm not saying that it's not possible. I think companies choose not to do it because it's a profit thing. But in the United States, the strawberries and cream Quaker, which by the way carries the heart healthy seal, whole grain oats, sugar, creaming agent, which is maltodextrin, sunflower and palm oil, whey, and sodium caseinate, flavored and colored fruit pieces, dehydrated apples, treated with sodium sulfite, artificial strawberry flavor, citric acid and red dye number 40, salt, guar gum, artificial flavor, citric acid, niacinamide, vitamin A, and a bunch of synthetic vitamins. That's your oatmeal. No strawberries. You go to the UK, and they have the Quaker brand there, and they have this Summer Breeze, Summer Berries, Oats So Simple, which is just the same thing. The ingredients: whole grain oats, sugar, freeze-dried raspberry pieces, freeze-dried strawberry pieces, and natural flavoring. That's it. Now, natural flavoring, of course, can be a whole bunch of other things. But just the ingredient list alone is shocking.
Shocking.
The same product in Europe. That's why a lot of my clients will say, I can go to Europe and I can eat croissants, I can eat bagels, I can eat pastries, and I don't have all the same gastrointestinal issues. One is the glyphosate, and two is a lot of the other junk that they throw in stuff in this country that the FDA that's looking out for us, the USDA, who's so busy, putting Amish farmers out of business, but they'll allow everything under the sun in a strawberries and cream oatmeal.
It's just crazy because you think about oatmeal and you just think, okay, steel cut oats. Yeah. You have a cup of oats, you cook it, you add some raw creamer, and you add some strawberries, and you have strawberries and cream oatmeal.
One would think.
And that's three ingredients right there. And the fact that you were listing ingredients for 3 minutes is ridiculous for strawberry and cream oatmeal.
Somebody make a reel out of that with the circus theme music in the background.
My God. Okay.
So I mean, I guess that's my point, is that products can be simple and they can be shelf stable because the Simple Mills brand uses rosemary as to preserve freshness. And again, go buy a box of each. Not that I would tell anybody to buy the Famous Amos brand, but if you wanted to do a side by side, I'm sorry, but you're not going to be able to tell the difference. Oh. And it's much, much better for you. And has total carb count is 10 less grams of carbohydrate. And, so I mean, not just because of all the extra additives and ingredients that they're using, it's a very clean cookie is what that is.
I'm going to have to take a look at it. Okay. Yeah. So here's what I have now, let's go for the rest of the night on this one.
Okay.
Tucker Carlson is in Australia. You want to talk about craziness, and you want to talk about a wonderful way to set the table for our chilling out and having a little bit of a group viewing of this debate tonight, to get ourselves in the mindset of the craziness. He is out there in Australia, and he is he's at a Hyatt hotel, and he's taking questions from the local media out there. Mm-hmm. And here is a 23. We're not going to listen to the full 23 minutes, obviously, but in the 23 minutes, there are about 3 or 4 people that he responds to. Each one crazier than the next, completely lost in that world. Nuts. The last one, the woman, the last one, the first person asks him, tries to pin him against the wall about his coziness with Putin. And it's so great what he did to be able to get around that. And then the last girl tries to really nail him to the cross over so-called replacement theory, being a racist. He's a racist. All that. It's all about white, preserving the white race, all that shit.
He's a milk drinker, isn't he?
Absolutely. So the first one I think is about 5 minutes. We got to listen to this, and I think we have enough time to listen to hear both of these particular things. But let's do it because I just want to chill out. I know that you're going to get a kick out of this one. So here you go. This is the first one, the opening question.
Thanks, Tucker. I saw a couple of our friends from the press gallery have a smile when you were getting into the free press. So I might ask Paul Sakal from the Sydney Morning Herald to ask a question.
Great. Thank you.
You've almost thanks for your speech.
Of course,
Mr. Carlson. The media can be extremely negative, so it's nice to hear uplifting comments about our country.
It's an amazing country.
It is, and I think we forget that in Australia oftentimes, so I appreciate that. You've preempted my question on Putin.
Putin! Putin!
I think you did strategically because you knew it's what we'd ask.
Putin! He's so bad!
And I also appreciate that...
Did he make you take the COVID shot?
Take what?
The COVID shot?
The winter of death.
Listen.
No, he didn't.
Hey.
Sorry.
The COVID shot saved probably tens of millions.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Safe and effective.
Tens of millions of lives.
Again, no reference,
Dude, it's fucking brain dead. But it gets worse. And let me just say, because now he's going to go on this epic rant. I got to give him credit. He is one of the best unscripted public speakers out there, especially in this kind of a scenario. Man, his recall is great. He speaks very, very concisely, very articulate. It's great. It really is. It's masterful public speaking.
This is why everyone loves the media.
Probably 100 times more lives than Putin is killed in Ukraine.
It's like a time capsule. It's like you're like the last Japanese soldier on Okinawa. You think the war's still going. No, it didn't save millions of lives. It's hilarious. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm being boorish.
Can I get the full answer in without interruption?
Okay, I beg your pardon.
I'm interested in your position on Putin. Many people in this crowd would adore conservative prime ministers in this country like John Howard, Tony Abbott, mainstream right-wingers like Boris Johnson, Australian Liberals. Some of their MPs are in the crowd, are vehemently anti-Putin. They believe he's a reprehensible figure who doesn't believe in the values of conservatism, such as the rule of law and democracy, which gives us the freedoms we have in our country. I'm interested. Do you feel any level of shame or regret that you were termed a useful idiot, and then post your interview, Vladimir Putin himself said in his Russian media that he was surprised at how weak your questions were. And he also said that you were wrong when you said that no other journalist had asked to interview him. He said, that's not true. We only thought Tucker was the only person to report fairly.
Wait, I thought that you were describing Putin as a psychopathic liar, and yet now you're taking his word for things?
Do you...
Let me just quickly unpack your absurd soliloquy if I can. First, I'm stuck on the idea that Boris Johnson is a right-winger.
Yeah,
do you know
me
Boris
too.
Johnson? I do. Boris Johnson is a criminal buffoon.
The war whore.
Who, like so many who claim to love Ukraine, is single-handedly responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian men in this war that Ukraine cannot win. And I would refer you to Wikipedia. How many more people does Russia have than Ukraine? Do you know? 100 million. 100 million. And in a land where that's a relevant number, it is not possible for Ukraine to beat Russia. The best they can do is sue for peace. That's been known, including by Zelensky, who wanted that since the early days of this conflict. And Boris Johnson, on orders from the Biden administration, shut down, and this is not a disputed fact, this is a fact, admitted by everybody now, shut down the peace negotiations almost 2 years ago. And Ukraine has been completely destroyed. And now Zelensky has passed a law allowing foreign corporations to own land there. So you tell me what Ukraine is going to look like in 30 years when all of it is owned by BlackRock and multinational corporations and its population is not Ukrainian. Okay, so the tragedy of what's happened in Ukraine, orchestrated by the Western powers, including your government, and I hope you do, and driven by my government, I feel shame about it, I hope you do too, is really one of the great crimes of my lifetime. So the idea that somehow if you're against that, you're for Putin, well, of course, that's absurd. And by the way, speaking of your friend Boris Johnson, he attacked me, of course, ad hominem, and so I called him. He was a journalist, not surprisingly, a man of low character, not shocking. And so I called him and I said, well, you've called me all these names. Why don't you sit down for a conversation? I happen to be in your rainy, depressing slum, London, and we could have a conversation. And he said, I won't do that unless you pay me $1 million.
Wow.
That's a fact.
Wow.
That's an non-disputed fact. I have the text messages. So if that is the credible source of the slur that, look, if I were a toady of Putin or I loved Putin, I would just say so. Because why do I care? I've already been fired. I don't work for anybody. I have no incentive. And by the way, it's perfectly fine if people love Putin. Well, I don't understand what that has to do with anything. We are citizens of different countries. We should judge first and foremost our own leaders. How's our country doing? How are my children doing? What's their future look like? None of that has anything to do with Putin, except to the extent that you all, this country, sit back, your government allows the Biden administration to push us into nuclear war, which is where we are right now, right on the cusp of it. And somehow that's not a story. That is that Putin doesn't respect human rights or the rule of law. Okay, well, just today, Julian Assange was released after 12 years. 12 years in custody. And your government did nothing. The UK made it possible, and the United States demanded it. You tell
Damn.
Wow.
Damn.
Tell me how that's consistent with the rule of law or democracy. It's not.
No.
It's ruled by the intel agencies. It's lawlessness, and it's a crime.
So I mean that complete doofus goes and does his thing, and then we have this. I have to get toward the end. I hope I can find her beginning.
This is the one I did see.
Then why do they have foreign troops here? That's I'm with different views, expressing.
Americans, Europeans are.
Gallery, Kat Wong from AAP.
Okay, here we go. All right, ready? Here we go.
Thanks, Tucker. One final question from the.
So the second person was asking him questions about what his opinions on China were.
Okay,
and those are pretty, reasonable too. I think that you'd find out. But this last 7 minutes are just incredible. This was the replacement theory thing. And just listen to her persistence, and then think about the debate tonight and the people who are going to be pulling the strings behind the green curtain.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Press Gallery, Kat Wong from AAP.
Hi, Tucker. Thank you so much for your address today. So you talked a little bit about immigration, and in the past you've talked about how white Australians, Americans, Europeans are being replaced by non-white immigrants in what is often referred to as the Great Replacement Theory. This is the same...
Have I said that whites are being replaced?
Well...
I don't think I said that.
Well, it's been mentioned on your show 4,000 times. And
really, when did I say that?
On your show.
I said whites are being replaced?
You have said that before.
Really?
Yeah.
I would challenge you to cite that, because I'm pretty sure I haven't said that. I said native-born Americans are being replaced, including blacks.
Native-born Americans.
Native-born Americans.
And
Americans who, like black Americans, African Americans have been in the United States for, in many cases, their families over 400 years. And their concerns are every bit as real and valid and alive to me as the concerns of white people whose families have been there 400 years. So I've never said that whites are being replaced. Not one time. And you can't cite it.
Untrue.
So we just met, but when our relationship starts with a lie, it makes it tough to be friends. So
I believe that's untrue.
Let's pull that back. I'm happy to explain what I do think.
So.
Well, you actually can't say it because I didn't say it, and I don't believe it, and I'm telling you that to your face, so why don't you just accept me at face value? My concern is that the people who are born in the country are the main responsibility of its leaders. And as noted earlier, when those leaders shift their concern from the people whose responsibility it is to take care of to people around the world to put their priorities above that of their own citizens, that's immoral. And they are being replaced in my country, people who are born in the United States, and the birth rate tells the whole story. They are not at replacement rate. And so the U.S. population is growing because we're importing people from other countries. And my view is that happy people have children, and a functioning economy allows them to do that. And we don't have that. And so you need to fix the economy and fix the culture and make it so that people who want to have kids can. You don't just go for the quick sugar fix of importing new people. Like, that's my position. And if you think that's racist, that's your problem.
I never called you a racist.
But of course you are suggesting.
Yes.
And I must say, one of the reasons people don't like people like you in the media is that you never say exactly what you mean. Your slurs are all by implication, and you're about to tell me the Great Replacement Theory is racist or anti-Semitic, whatever. I've said what I've said to you right now like 100 times in public. I hope to, if I live long enough, say it 100 more times. I think it's completely honest and real, not racist or scary. It's factually true. It's not a theory, it's a fact. And the whole point of your question was to be like, you're a scary racist.
Well, I haven't.
And my response is, no, I'm not. Okay, well, how about no more lying in your questions, and then I'll answer it.
Okay. Well, this is the same theory, or as you say, idea, that has inspired the New York Buffalo shooting where 11...
Oh, God. She can't... Listen, there is no... It's like I said, they're not complete people.
No, they're NPCs.
It's a program that is running. There are pieces missing. It's just incredible. This was a script that she was going to run. No matter what the answers she got, she was going to get to every point and get it on the record.
It's like watching Joyanne Reid try to do a segment without mentioning racism.
Oh, I know.
Right, like she can't do it. She can't do it. I thought she was the one who wrote the story about milk being racist because it would be something that she would say if she was covering a story on a dairy farmer. Either the dairy farmer or somehow the cow would end up being racist.
Yeah.
Because that, like you said, they have a very limited, narrow scope of understanding, if you can even call it that. And if you force them to stray off of that mark, they're doomed.
Yeah. And that's why the ending of this is so satisfying. Here we go.
Come on,
Two
you know what
white
I mean?
Americans were killed.
Like,
It's also inspired.
It's not. First of all,
it's inspired the worst, one of the worst Australian guys
how do
of
they
all
get
time
people
to
this
shoot
stupid in the media? I guess it doesn't pay well. Look, I'm sorry. I've lived among people like you for too long, and I don't mean to call you stupid. Maybe you're just pretending to be, but I'm totally against violence. I'm totally against the war in Ukraine, for example, which doubtless you support. And like all dutiful liberals, support more carnage. I don't. I hate mass shootings, actually. Nothing I said, what does it mean to inspire something? My views are not bigoted against any group. They're honest. They're factual. That's not hate. That's reality. And my views derive from my deep concern for Americans, actually. Americans aren't having kids because they can't afford to. And nobody in charge cares. And so that's my position. That doesn't inspire mass shootings. How dare you try to tie me to some lunatic who murdered people? How dare you, actually? And in fact, I mean, do you know what I mean? I'd be like, Hitler wore those shoes. A lot of people are saying that you're like Hitler. Can you explain those shoes? Hitler wore exactly the same shoes, and you're like, I've got nothing to do with Hitler. Well, that's how I feel about your absurd, disingenuous question.
Right, so therefore you support gun control?
What? I thought it couldn't get dumber, but it did. No, I don't support disarming law-abiding people so they can't defend themselves. So the government has a monopoly on violence? I don't think so. First of all, in my country, that's illegal, as you know. But moreover, it should be illegal in every country. A sovereign person has the right to defend himself and his family. Period. And that said, I'm totally opposed to harming anyone. Have you been calling? Are you concerned about the war in Ukraine and the countless innocents being murdered there every single day? I doubt you are. Probably Putin bad. I am. I'm a Christian. I hate violence. I hate mass shootings. I have guns at home and often on my person when I'm in the United States, I'm proud to say, because I want to defend myself and those I love against violence. That's the point. I'm not perpetrating crimes. I'm not shooting strangers. I'm defending what I love. And if you're against that, I guess I would ask why. Why would you be against that?
Well, so you don't think you harbor any kind of responsibility for these hate crimes?
Oh, my God.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to be charitable. I was like, maybe you're just pretending to be dumb. Now I don't think it's an act.
I mean, look, dude.
Yeah.
That's a person who has... somebody must know that somebody might even live with that woman. What the fuck kind of a hell is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. They use tragedy again, like he said, Tucker said perfectly. You don't care about the hundreds of thousands that have been slaughtered in Ukraine unnecessarily, but you'll find a racially motivated crime. You'll find the one crime that suits your narrative, and then you'll just harp on that to try to get whatever legislation you want. The only thing that was missing there was climate change. I was trying to figure out if she would try to tie Tucker Carlson's Fox News show to, in the past to climate change. That was the only talking point, the only stupid, idiotic, nonsensical talking point that's not rooted in reality. That's the only thing she was missing.
That's what this, and listen, here, I have something for you, because I think this really does relate. Here's a headline from CNBC, of all places. People need this essential cognitive ability, and fewer people have it than ever before, says a psychologist. It's a major concern. People are losing the cognitive and social skills they need for thriving personal and professional life, says organizational psychologist Richard Davis. We are at a risk of losing the essential capability that I call receptivity, said Davis, the managing director of Toronto-based leadership. It's the consulting firm Russell Reynolds Associates. It's the ability to have good judgment, to have insight about people, and it's a major concern. He blames like technology and things like that, but it's very clear to see that cognitively we are crashing, and especially, it's one thing to say that, there's a class divide here, and those that are very well off are very well educated, and people below them who are a little bit more economically disadvantaged, who are falling behind because of bad public policy, they're losing their mind, or they're not well stimulated enough, or they're being given too many toys to distract themselves, and they're becoming just I don't know, knuckle dragging idiots. But you just heard it. I mean, this is the media. This is the political class. There is no cognitive ability. If you saw AOC and Jamal Bowman jumping around like 3-year-olds on that stage over the weekend, trying to get people to vote for them.
Thank God that didn't work.
Dude, though, that kind of behavior is fucking caveman-like. And that woman we just heard in Australia, I mean, what is left of that brain?
Well, that's like, being forced. I've said this on your show before, too. You and I agree on a lot of things, but, we've gotten to a point in society where we think we've forgotten that disagreement, like reasonable men can disagree. Disagreement is part of the process of progress, right? Like, and I think that it's like on a college campus, if students don't like what somebody has to say politically, socially, whatever it is that's coming to speak at their school, they will now protest to keep that person from speaking at that school. Instead of developing the robust debate technique to thwart whatever that person is saying and to intellectually challenge that person, these people block their ears and pretend that they don't exist. And I think that part of that is what contributes to this dumbing down of society, where we are now losing our cognitive ability to handle any kind of adversity. So I like when people disagree. I don't enjoy listening to debates. I've told you this before, because I feel like too many people are looking for gotcha moments. What we're not looking for anymore is the truth, or to actually solve problems. But I find most of the leaders in history that I've studied that I find to be credible and that I respect are ones that actually liked to have people around them with dissenting opinions, because it forced them to refine their own position on something, right? So anytime I was ever wrong in grad school, and I was forced on a weekly basis to defend my positions on discussion boards, and you had to cite your evidence like she didn't. You had to formulate an opinion and then go back and forth. And sometimes people would agree with you and sometimes they wouldn't. And it was your job to defend your position. They prepared you for that. I don't think people are being prepared for that anymore.
No.
So every little thing that happens in life becomes unbearable and an existential crisis where it's just a disagreement. But I really do feel like in society we've gotten to a place where people have to couch their, we agree on most things. It's like, it's fine. We don't have to agree on everything. We can still have respectable and respectful dialogue.
That's the whole thing. That respect is gone because there's the only way to differentiate ourselves for politically expedient ways is to try to distance yourself, try to make the opponent that must be vanquished seem less human than you are, and it gets so shameless. Like, here is a clip of a judge from Texas. And I thought at first I had to go check because the way that it was shot and the acting and all that stuff, it was shot in the same spirit. It was acted in the same spirit of those old school Onion News videos.
Oh, yeah.
Here is a Texas judge who actually, because now it's hard to ignore all of the newly arrived illegal alien crime operations, organized crime, assaults, rapes, murders. I mean, young girls being just kidnapped. Anyway, there's a Texas judge who blamed President Trump for the murder of this young girl, this 12-year-old from Texas, which is just a horrible story. I haven't spoken about it because there's a new one every couple of days, and I just, it's happening, and we know it. And what are we gonna, it's terrible. Anyway, look at this. I thought it was a joke, but it's shamelessly real. And you want to talk about lack of respect for anything.
I mean, it already looks like a high school drama production,
dude,
just from the still.
Listen to this bitch.
It hurts even more that they're being used as pawns in this fight over immigration that doesn't even exist because Biden and McConnell agree. It's just that Trump won't let them move it forward.
What?
All due respect, Judge, you said this issue shouldn't be politicized, but by pointing the finger at former President Trump and Republicans in Congress, aren't you politicizing it?
I think I answered the question. So, yeah, I mean, this is about Jocelyn. This is about her family, and
you didn't answer the question. What are you fucking talking, dude? This was like this is out of one of those MTV teen dramas from like 1999.
Yeah, her vocal fry is crazy.
This is a judge.
If we want to,
Judge,
as I said, talk about immigration,
you didn't answer the question. Are you politicizing this by pointing the finger at Republicans and saying it's their fault, not the fault of the Biden administration that lifted the Remain in Mexico policies?
Again, the Biden administration reached an agreement with Leader McConnell to address this, but this is not about immigration. I'm not going to feed into that.
Oh my god, dude!
Is she presiding over a courtroom right now, or is this a press
First of all, she's fucking high on heroin. Look at her face.
Yeah, I mean, her processing skills leave a lot to be desired too. You could see it in her face.
It's a single-celled organism, and every week that passes, we get a glimpse into yet another single-celled organism that was given a high-paying, prominent judgeship somewhere.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
But this should show your audience and everybody listening that, stop deferring to, like I always say on this show, authority-based medicine, authority-based anything. Just because someone's in a position of authority doesn't mean that they possess all the skills necessary to execute that position effectively. I mean, we've seen this now enough with judges or heads of CDC or whoever. So this should be enlightening for people to say, okay, these are just regular people, completely and totally capable of this nonsense.
What really gets me about something like that is if you go and you try, if you lambaste a person like that, and perhaps you do get just so upset with the display, not only with her the gall to say something like that, but then the zonked out high school ditzy evasiveness afterwards of a supposed to be a judge, a prestigious position, and then of course the big defense to avoid any kind of responsibility is, oh, you're coming after her because of her race or because of her gender.
Of course.
As if to say, which is so racist in itself, because it's saying that, okay, there could never be and aren't currently black or Hispanic women that are in this country that aspire to a position like that or have already attained it because they are worth their weight in gold, and they have achieved a lot, and they actually have respect for the position and aren't. I mean, that's what we should expect.
Right.
For what? You're saying that this is what we should. This behavior is what we should expect from all non-white female judicial appointees or whatever the hell it is, and that's what we should. What?
Right. That's that hive mind of the I call them the new Democrat Party, because it's not a Democrat Party that I ever remembered, at least.
Fucking A, man.
Yeah, you can only think one way. We want diversity, but we only want diversity on the outside, where it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like on the inside, you must all think alike.
All right, real quick. Let's end this real quick. Right on Q says, thank you, Frank. That's on the Rumble Rants. Northern Pike says, yes, be aware of natural flavors created by and for transhumans, synthetic, hybrid, Godspeed. Over on, let me see here. Cody says, that was the most insane interview I've ever seen. Literally worse than gore. How the hell is this allowed? Pretty sure we all died in 2012 and are just living in hell. Yeah, maybe the Mayan calendar, there was something to it.
That's a good call.
Yeah, what
time split. Yeah.
Hey, here's one from Cave Toad. One last nutrition question for you. Hey, Jay, if you're on carnivore, what's your best source of potassium? I know supplementing could be dangerous.
Yeah, I'm actually not on carnivore, but I think I use mineral water for that. I don't supplement, and I don't do carnivore. So, I mean, I use seasonal produce to be able to get potassium. Fermented foods, and
a banana.
Yeah, I mean avocado, or actually avocado has even more potassium. But yeah, I mean I don't actually do a ton of fruit, but I also do a lot of organ meats. I shouldn't say a lot. I do adequate amount of organ meats because organ meats are incredibly replete with nutrients like potassium. But yeah, and my BP is super solid, and I use a ton of salt, and real salt, real sea salts. Depending on where it comes from, will have more balanced mineral profile than like a sodium chloride table salt. So you don't have to worry as much about high potassium intake if you're getting, sort of all your minerals.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I have a really quick pick for tonight's Badass. We're down to almost tomorrow night is our last Badass because on Monday it is July 1st.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get this done. We have a Badass for you, and then we're going to get off and then get back on, and I'll tell you where to go in just a second. Here we go.
That's some badass shit.
It's pretty badass.
Yeah, that's right. It is pretty badass. Tonight's badass is Ty Beeson. This is pretty funny. It's actually a little controversial. Ty Beeson is the creator of the old show, the old videos on the internet before YouTube, the E-Bombs World version of the internet, all that bum fights. Ty Beeson created bum fights. It's not our highest point. Okay, where he went and got homeless people to fist fight each other, and he filmed it and put it on the internet. Anyway, he was invited on to Dr. Phil.
Oh.
Dr. Phil invited him on to confront him about exploiting vulnerable people for financial gain. Only thing is that Beeson shows up on Dr. Phil's show dressed as Dr. Phil to point out that he does the exact same thing. And he got... And when Dr. Phil saw him, when Dr. Phil saw him there on the stage, he kicked him off the show because he just wanted to show how righteously indignant he was about the whole thing, and probably because he wanted to avoid having to admit that he is doing the same thing. Though, it's not as egregious, I guess, as making impoverished people fight each other for money. But it's just one of those. It's just one of those moments. So, is it a badass? I don't know, but let's just watch it together.
I'm doing a service to the homeless people. I'm turning these people into something special. I'm motivating them, inspiring them. I believe our customers are infatuated with watching our videos because there's a lot of people that are addicted to violence. They want to see homeless people doing crazy things. It's something that this world needs. For example, one guy, he was a crackhead and his teeth were bothering him, so we got him a pair of pliers and we ripped one of his teeth out.
Oh my.
And he just wanted a bottle of JD. There are lines that I don't cross. I don't do hardcore porn and I don't deal with death footage. We don't just sit there and give him our pocket change and say good luck. We put him to work. There was a homeless guy. We said, what would you do if we gave you some money? He said, I'd eat a raw frog. So we went to the Asian market, got a raw frog, and he ate it on the sidewalk. We paid him $20.
$20.
Made multi-millions off the Bum Fights video series.
So he said multi-millions he's made. Wow. Like I said, this is not the badass part of it.
No.
Okay? So I just wanted to reiterate, this was not a high point for any of us. And this is when we knew that the internet was going to be a shit show. Okay? But here we go.
I'm not surprised at my success. It's a sick world.
Stop the tape. Stop the tape.
There he is.
I don't want to talk to you.
Why not?
That's despicable. I don't want to talk to you. You can go.
I mean, think about the pageantry just right now. Dr. Phil did not know who he was. To act like this is the first time he's seen it, I don't even want to talk to you, made him go all the way out to the studio just to tell him to go home. I mean, that in itself is just such a cheap act.
So, do you think this part is scripted? I feel like it's scripted. There's
of
no
course.
way. Like Dr. Phil would. No, I mean, like Dr. Phil knew and intentionally canceled. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we're on the same page.
Of course, his producers, they knew what they were doing that day.
Yeah,
of course. He's acting like he just saw this and he doesn't even want to talk to him. But there is Ty. He's sitting there with his head shaved. All right, here we go.
If you think I exploit people, every time you bring a guest on this show, you exploit them and spread whatever problems they have to the whole world. You think that's helping them?
Yeah, keep telling yourself that. You can go.
Wow.
You know what? Who do you think you are, huh?
Bye.
Come on.
Huh?
Come on.
No, I'm not finished talking to you.
It's Jerry Springer.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are. Come on.
No, I'm not.
Come on. Yeah, you are. Come on, let's go.
Listen.
I gotta say.
Sorry, but I just watched that footage, and that is absolutely despicable, and I refuse to publicize that. I'm just not going to.
He is, man, I did not like this guy before. What a hack he is. Such a hack.
And that's an oldie. That's an oldie.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's an oldie but a goodie. And like I said, the bum fights is always, I never got a kick out of it. It always made me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But this particular face-to-face, because I always feel that shows like Dr. Phil are it's scumminess with a bow tie. You know, it's you are exploiting people. You are. So I mean,
I feel like his studio audience might as well have been the studio audience for The View. It was like the same exact people go to see Dr. Phil, and anything that spawns from Oprah Winfrey, I want no part of.
That's it. Okay, well, listen, everybody, we have to make a transition now. We are not changing sex, but we are going to be we are transitioning to the next
Stay
phase.
tuned.
That's it. Okay. Well, Julius, thank you for being on with us.
Oh, yes, thank you. That was an attempt at my name, yeah?
Yeah, Julius Gulinello.
See, I didn't respond very quickly, so you know that actually was that's not my real name.
All right, well, here we go. So listen, it's 8:56. We're getting off right now and get over to quitefrankly.tv or to DLive or to Twitch or to Twitter or to Rumble. Just go ahead, and we will see you in just a little while. Thanks for everything. No, I guess we have to do the whole thing. Here we go.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Will you shut up?
Meow.